All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a nice little break. You got a chance to get some coffee and maybe a snack before we head to our second presentation of the morning for this 16th annual WUA Symposium. Of course, this is our first inaugural virtual symposium. So it's new technology, and we've had some technical stuff on the back end that I think, have sorted out. We'll find out when Tammy's up next. So on to our second presenter of the morning. And here's the agenda again. It was wonderful to hear from Dave Cooper up in the Apostle Islands, coming from Bayfield to us. And now on the agenda, we have Tamara Thomsen, the state underwater archeologist for the Wisconsin Historical Society's Maritime Preservation Program, an archaeology program. She's going to be talking about the 2020 dive season. So if those who've been to the symposiums in the past, you kind of get a chance to see the work that was done this season by the state program. Of course, given the year, they were still able to do some work, so she'll be sharing that with us. But a little bit about Tammy, for those who don't know her. Tamara Thomsen is a maritime archaeologist with the Wisconsin Historical Society's Maritime Preservation and Archeology program. Her research has resulted in the nomination of 58 submerged sites to the National Register of Historic Places. She has received awards from the Association for Great Lakes Maritime History, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Preservation Society, and in 2014, she was inducted into the Women's Divers Hall of Fame. Tamara is an active cave rebreather and technical dive instructor with Diversion Scuba in Madison, Wisconsin, and has worked as a photographer, researcher, and research diver on projects including the USS Monitor with NOAA, National Marine Sanctuaries, and the RMS Titanic with Woods Hole National or Oceanographic Institute. So there's a mouthful, and this woman needs no other further introduction, but we're very pleased to have Tammy back with us, and very honored that she was able to join us this morning and share what she's been up to with Caitlin and the program this summer around the state of Wisconsin. Tammy, take it away.
Thank you. Let's see if this will actually work, or if I'm going to have to, I don't know, use hand signals. We've been having a rough time on the video. Are you able to bring my PowerPoint up, Brendan? I don't know. So we've, like many of you, have had difficulties transitioning.
Looks like we lost Tammy.
Oh, okay. Well, we can see her presentation.
Yes, we can. She'll be back in a moment, everybody. Bear with us. Here she comes. Sorry about that, Tammy.
Hi.
You're back.
The gremlins.
Can anybody else hear me? I sit in my bedroom and talk to myself like I've done for most of COVID. So like many of you, we've had a number of struggles and difficulties getting out into the field this year. And I'm going to celebrate the successes that our program was able to achieve. Next slide, please. Is that going to work?
Yeah, let's try that. First, let me minimize you and bring up the slide full screen. Let's go this last one. Hold on. All right, this seems to have worked. We're good.
All right. So next slide, please. Yay! And am I still there?
Yes, you are.
All right. So we again, we had a little difficulty getting out into the field, but we were able to achieve quite a bit this season. One of the things that you'll notice is that in March, Tori Kiefer left the program. So it was just Caitlin and I starting out in the field season. And we struggled under, as you can probably imagine, a mountain of permission reviews to get out in the field that were sort of in place because of COVID. So eventually they started letting us out in June, and we were able to work on quite a few projects. Next slide. So we returned to an area that we worked in last year in Detroit Harbor. Started out that we had gone up to Washington Island to survey a newly located piece of the General Winfield Scott. And we got weathered out over on the east side of the island last year. And so that forced us into the harbor to look at some shipwrecks that were there. This was an advanced field school. So next slide, please. So we were working with divers who had come through prior WUA and Society field school programs to give them a little bit more field experience in a in working with the field in the field and to practice with their underwater archeological skills. This is Jeff Lemoyne from Great Lakes Shipwreck Preservation Society. Had completed a WUA field school in 2018. So he came back along with Tim Pronke, and we also had an intern from Indiana University, Tori Galloway, Tori Kiefer, Caitlin, and I went into the field. Next slide. So this is last year. And we were able to survey what we're now calling Rec 1 within Detroit Harbor. We still don't know exactly what this is. It's in an area that is north of the ferry terminal, and we employed the assistance of Captain Eric Bono to examine losses that were in Detroit Harbor. We did have a list that was with the Historical Society's website and their database, and in the Wisconsin Shipwrecks database, which we matched this against, and we found out that not everything we have listed is there. And of course, not everything that's there is listed. So we began sort of entangling the mess of data that we had. Next slide, please. Eric was able to find a number of images for us. This is an aerial photograph from the mid-1950s. This is looking at the Cornell fishing dock. So this is just 2 docks north of where the ferry terminal is. And we can see if you click your mouse there, the arrow will come up, Brendan, maybe. There it is. Just off the Cornell fishing dock, we see on the north side of the dock, we see an abandoned fish tug. We see a hooker type vessel, which is called the Diana. And in the water, off the stern of that is the remains of what we believe is the Arrow. Next slide, please. There you go. So the Arrow, this is at its abandonment. It had been built in 1879 by Andrew Johnson in Oshkosh. It had been sailed under various owners throughout its career. Later career, it had been converted over to an auxiliary gas engine and eventually abandoned in Detroit Harbor sometime after 1924. So we believe that Rec 1 is actually the Arrow. Next slide. Eric was also able to find a number of aerial images that were taken in 2012 by the Army Corps of Engineers early in the year before weeds came up. And we noticed that there had been 2 other vessels that were further out into the harbor. If you click the mouse again, Brendan, you'll see above the arrow the remains of another vessel. We went out to explore this in 2019. However, the weeds in July when we had visited the site were a little bit too high. So we proposed to come back in the early spring of 2020 to be able to look at it. And early spring kept getting pushed back because of COVID. But eventually in June, Caitlin and I were allowed back. Next slide. So what we thought was wreckage of just a single vessel, we now believe may actually be 2 vessels. And we know that that
Kevin, I think we lost Tammy. We'll just wait for her to come back in.
Yeah, it seems like, again, the gremlins are at it. But this is a good chance for folks out there watching to also, and I just typed this in the Facebook comment feed, is if you have questions for Tammy, now is the time to type them in. That way there'll be time at the end for taking those questions.
Don't know what
Hi.
Hey, she's back.
Okay. So I'm just going to talk fast because I don't know when I'm ever going to disappear again. So we have here the remains of two different vessels. It became more evident when we began surveying and drawing that it indeed wasn't just the remains of one, but two. Next slide. Okay, the next two slides are going to be just underwater images of this is what was vessel 3. This is the framing, and it looks like there's some repairs to the port side framing of this particular vessel. It does have part of the rudder post extant on this particular vessel, so we do know at least what's the bow and the stern. The next slide will show you vessel number 2, which is a little bit more intact. We see the floors here, and over on the right side of the image, we see the keelson and keelson assembly. So next slide. So we started trying to figure out like when these things were abandoned here, and when when what they could be, and trying to narrow down really our field of guesses as to what the names were for them. And if you look in the top right corner of this collage, we have a nautical chart from 1926 that Eric was able to locate, and you see that there's no wrecks that are drawn into the chart. The next one over, do a click there, a mouse click, Brendan. We see that there is a semi-submerged wreckage, which is just off the dredging area. The harbor now dredged by 1941, and this abandonment appears. And if you click again in the bottom image, which is from 1950, and click a couple times, we see other wreckage, which is one more time, which is listed, or which is shown on this this nautical chart. So we see the wreckage in the center, which is where wreck 2 and 3 are, is now listed as submerged remains. We see the arrow has been abandoned on the left side of the screen, and on the right side of the screen, another vessel shows up off Lobel Point, I believe that is, on Detroit Island. We went looking for that one as well. We could not find any remains of the wreckage, so that may in fact have been removed. Okay, next slide. See if we get lucky. Eric started again sorting through opportunities for what this could be. We know that it came, we see evidence of it post 1941. His suggestion was that it could be the remains of a barge, a dredge that's known as the Stony Island. The Stony Island was owned by Bill Jepson, and he was the original owner of the ferry line up until he sold it to Arnie Richter. We can see from, I'm going to click your mouse, the top corner is from a 1938 aerial, and we see the dredge at the ferry dock. Click again, and we'll see the sunken barge again at the ferry dock in the mid-1950s. He found an image labeled Stony Island, although we are not sure if this is or is not the Stony Island for sure, but it's listed as Stony Island ?
And it seems that we may have had Tammy drop again. Let's wait for her to come back in.
There must be something going on in Madison. There's too many people online. That's it seems to be the case. But yeah, it's fascinating. Hey, she's back again.
It's like magic. Okay, next slide. So we are. So this is the compilation of all of the 3 submerged vessels, the abandonments that are in Detroit Harbor, at least in the immediate harbor. We can see the dredging area outlined here, as well as the docks today. So this is our finished product, at least for now. Again, it's an ongoing process, and we were able to add all of this shipwreck data to the Wisconsin Shipwrecks.org website, as well as to the Lake Michigan State Water Trail. And so the site plans for these and the history and best guesses on what the names are for some of these has been added to give more information to paddlers and boaters. Next slide. In July, we were able to get out to Whitefish Bay. This is the Whitefish Bay in Door County, not the Whitefish Bay north of Milwaukee. And we hired Tom Crossman, actually, because we didn't think we were going to be able to get into the field at all this year. We hired him to go out in May and to survey the bay with side scan sonar. He towed the entire harbor, or the entire bay, and was located 30 or so anomalies, things that he thought that would be better off if we went to check out. So next slide. Kaylin and I were able to get out into the fields for a week, and we went and dropped on every one of these targets. So this is Caitlin with the list of GPS coordinates, and she's entering them into our chart plotter. Next slide. I think you got to open the video next. Oh, you got it in, Brendan. Woo! So I have a little video of what happened on our project. So roll in here and drop on the first of 30 of our targets. And then there's an awful lot of back rolling off the boat that happens after that. But I suppose more than anything, you're probably interested in what it is that we saw. We had thought that we were going to be able to find some of the any kind of parts of the 7 remaining shipwrecks that were lost in Whitefish Bay. However, there's been a lot of sand which has intruded into the bay, so we found a whole lot of pondette stakes. And yeah, here's Caitlin. She's saying that's the most time she has, or the most number of tanks that she has ever lifted from the water into the boat in a day. So she was feeling very strong in her arm workout for the afternoon. We also found a number of large boulders, glacial erratics, and we were able to track down where we believe a number of the wrecks are. And although we weren't allowed to dig, we were given no opportunity to probe or to excavate, but we have suspicion now as to where a couple of those wrecks are, and we'll keep an eye on it as the water levels change and as the sand moves around in the bay. Okay, next slide. Oh, back to the video. There we go. One more. There you go. So we were also able to look at abaya. I think I mentioned this last year at the symposium, that we had gone out last year and at least done a dive on the ship to verify its length and beam and to get some diagnostic data and confirm that it is the abaya. At that point, we received funding after that, we received funding from Hamilton Family Foundation to conduct a survey. So we hired Tom Crossman to come in. Again, we didn't know whether we would be allowed out in the field. So he went out in May with video ray ROV that was equipped with video and with sonar, multi-beam sonar, and spent a couple days on the shipwreck looking at it and collecting data for us. Also,
and it looks like we lost Tammy again. She'll be back momentarily.
Just reappear. Yeah, if you again just out there have any questions for Tammy based on this research, just let us know on the thread. Here she is.
So next slide, Brendan. So we were able to part of the funding that Hamilton gave us was to produce a you got that 3D model, so a photogrammetry model of Abaya. So we brought Gavin Kovacs from Marine Imaging Technologies in to look at Abaya, and it's kind of stuttering, but that's okay. You can still get an idea of what the wreck looks like. This isn't the final version of the model. There's still a little bit of cleaning up to do, as there is on almost all models. But you can see that that it is pretty much intact. There's a little bit of the port side which is collapsed in. There's some of the midship decking which has come off and is over on the starboard side. And as he rotates around, he'll come up under the bow, and you'll see the anchor is still in place underneath the bowsprit and jib boom. I think I've been really impressed with the models so far, and the things that we've seen coming out of their group. So Evan used to work for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. He worked for the Advanced Imaging and Visualization Lab, and he's now gone on his own, and he's making a lot of submerged technology. He's partnered with the Park Service. Next slide. And this was the camera that we were able to bring out in order to do it. This is called C-Ray. Evan developed this camera in partnership with them, and so they were, Brett Seymour from Park Service was gracious enough to loan this to us for the Abaya project. So this is 3 cameras that you're seeing here on the array with a number of lights. And then the controllers are all in that central canister. So Evan is not known for bringing small equipment when he comes to see us. Yeah, this certainly wasn't small either. I think I wish Caitlin and I were stronger and worked out a little bit more during our quarantine, because we need to lift this thing in and out of the water. Okay, next slide. Also, when Evan was here, the week that he had reserved for us was also time when the multiple hurricanes had come into the Gulf and were working their way up into the Midwest. So after getting out on Abaya, we ended up waiting it out for a couple days to see if the waves and weather would calm down, and it didn't. So instead of going back to Abaya, we were able to get him out onto Green Bay, and we collected data to produce 2 more models, which are forthcoming still. One for the Ariel Hackley and one for the Jenny Bell. So we used him while he was here. We worked him hard, but we had difficulty finding places to get him to in order to use the opportunity for using his machines and his talent. Next slide. We also were able to do a little work on States buoys with the high water, the record high water we have on Lake Michigan. Several of our buoys fell short as far as how much chain they had. So we went out and worked with Door County's dive team. They do the installation of the mooring buoys around Door County. We also provided supplies to the teams that are working on them off of Milwaukee. Jerry Geyer warehouses and manages that team. And then Randy Wallander works on the ones in the central counties. So a lot of extra chain needed to be spliced in, some of them replaced altogether. Next slide. We also worked with the Door County dive team to remove a number of ghost nets from the shipwrecks in Door County. This is with Conservation Warden Mike Neal. We pulled 3 nets off the ocean wave that had drifted in. So all various ages of nets and net floats cut off of that one to help the shipwreck. It was becoming damaged actually by some of the nets. Next slide. We also were able to get a number of markers into Lakeshore State Park. There's 3 of them which were produced for them, and they'll rotate through the kiosks that they have in the park. This is in downtown Milwaukee, so it's one of the more heavily used urban parks that DNR manages, and it's nice to get a little bit of maritime history there and to change it up for people who are using the park for walking and running, and they'll notice these things on a daily basis. This particular one is on self-unloaders. Caitlin was really lead in putting this one together. Next slide. And we finished up some publications. So we published there's all of these are available on the Wisconsin Shipwrecks website. So if you go to Wisconsin Shipwrecks under the Learn tab and click on Technical Field Reports, all of these will be up there. I still need to put the Ronks Pier one up, and that'll come up probably next week. But we try to make sure that all of the work that we produce is available for other researchers. So we have the comparative analysis of scow schooners, which we completed last year with Tori Galloway, and then the writing was finished up early this spring. We have our 2019 field report, which is up there. We do have printed versions of that, so if people are interested in receiving a printed version of that, reach out to us. You can either click on the Contact Us button on the Wisconsin Shipwrecks website, or just send an email to either Caitlin or I, and we'll get that out to you. We do the printing office at the university finally opened back up and was able to handle our print job, so we have that. And then finished up and approved literally last week was the survey of Ronks Pier. This is a combination of terrestrial work, which was conducted by Amy Roseborough and Dan Joyce from Kenosha Public Museums, and underwater work that we conducted with Crossman offshore on a historic lumber pier in Ozaukee County. So if you want information on those are available for you and out there now digitally. If you want paper versions, reach out. The comparative analysis of the scow schooners, that will be published in actual text form, paper form, when we finish up the comparative analysis of self-unloaders in the state, which Caitlin is now working on. So probably next spring, the paper copy of the canalers, scows, and the self-unloaders will be put together into one publication, and that'll be available if you like the paper versions. Okay, next slide. We were also able to get a number of shipwrecks moved up and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Thomas Friant was listed on the state register last year and moved up onto the National Register early this year. This one built in 1884, lost in 1923. This was discovered by Ken Merriman and friends just off Next slide, Brendan, unless you lost me. Okay.
No, I got you.
I never know whether I'm talking to myself, right? We were able to list the War Eagle as well to the National Register. This is the 150th year of its loss, so this is particularly important for the city of La Crosse. And this is our first shipwreck that was listed in the Mississippi River. So you can see here the multi-beam sonar, the side scan sonar imagery of War Eagle on the bottom of the Black River. It's at Black River in the confluence of the Mississippi. So this was listed, built in 1854, lost in 1870. Next slide. Oh, did you lose me? There you go. I'm going to cheer for all my successes. Yay, I wasn't lost again. The Freedom Mine was surveyed in 2017. And this is our very first submerged mine site. This is up in Sauk County over in the Baraboo area. And so this was listed both to the state and now historic place. It's on private land, and so we're working with the landowner with this very important and very unique site. We're excited about that one. Next slide. Next one is going to be the Tenny and Laura. The Tenny and Laura was actually listed to the National Register of Historic Places in 2008. This was the ship that was found when they were searching for the Linda E. It was located in 1996 and surveyed the following year by the Coast Guard cutter Acacia. We were able to get out to it in 2004 with help from the UW-Milwaukee's Water Institute at the time, and look at it and list it. And then as technology advances, National Register provides for updates to their forms. So we went out and looked at this with Marine Imaging Technology, Evan Kovac's group, and with Tom Crossman. And we were able to write a more thorough site description of the shipwreck. And so a new National Register nomination or an updated form was entered into the register. Next slide. We also were on the way to listing the Robert Pringle. The Pringle was built in 1903, lost in 1922, discovered by Steve Radovan around 2008. This was listed to the State Register of Historic Places in October, and it has been submitted to the National Park Service for review. So we should see that sometime around in the first months of the year, a notification of that listing. Next slide. And we were also able to submit a form for the barge transfer. This one was built as the William McGregor in 1872. It was acquired by the Milwaukee Electric Railway and Light Company in 1912 and used by them, cut down to a coal barge, as a self-unloading coal barge and used on the riverways of Milwaukee until its abandonment in 1932. Jerry Geyer found this one, located in.
Oh, I think we lost Tammy again.
Yeah, it seems like it, but there's some great images. That's a fantastic photograph. Talk about visibility out there.
And she's back.
Good visibility. We're just commenting on the viz on this wreck. Incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like my video goes out, like I can't see myself, but I can still hear you all. So it's a little bit disconcerting as to whether you're hearing me or not. So I'm glad for the feedback. We submitted the form for this. This will likely be heard by the state committee in February, and then we will see that being pushed onto the National Register, and we're hoping that it's listed on the register by the end of 2021. Next slide, and the final in the struggle is if you have any questions, we do have the wisconsinshipwrecks.org website. Please hit the contact us button. That goes directly to Caitlin and I. One of us will be able to get a hold of you and answer your questions. We try to make sure that all of the research that we're doing, all of the site information that we're completing and kind of processing through gets put up here and updated. We're still working with Tom Vland, although we can't have volunteers at our building. He is still doing updates to wisconsinshipwrecks.org, and he is still leading the group, which is researching the historic diving in Wisconsin. We check in and follow up with him pretty regularly, but we're not working with him in person, and I certainly have missed that. So next slide, and I think that's the last one. Maybe we made it through because the struggle is real. Thank you. Any questions? Oh God.
Well, yeah, thank you, Tammy. That I know is you never know when things are going to drop in and out, but it streamed pretty well from what we could tell. I mean, fantastic imagery too on some of the wrecks, and again, it shows the pioneering kind of technology that we're seeing coming out of your department and partnering with some of the best pros in the field that are on the cutting edge of mapping these wrecks in incredible detail. So kudos to all that you're doing for that, telling those stories in vivid ways. So it came across really well. I'm just curious how much that camera goes for. Just looking at the size of that device. Unbelievable.
Well, I have to tell you something. They had never had it to 250 feet of water, and it flooded. So and not like the controller module flooded, and so for the next couple of days that we were blown out, that was cooking in my oven. Here in Madison at very low temperatures. They were in. What happened when the main module flooded, it wicked through all the cables and it got into all three of the cameras. So we was able to bring back the three cameras, but the module was kind of toasted. So they unfortunately had to do a lot of work on it. I guess that's one of the things when you're not buying something that's off the shelf, you're making it, and it is like, really unique and new, and they're trying to develop this new technology, that you're part of the testing process with some of that equipment too. So I'm happy to have a model at all. Yay! No
doubt. Yeah, the fact that
was a lot of struggle too.
Does it work with VR? Is that something in the future with virtual reality? You can really just literally immerse yourself in those models.
Yeah, he's going to be sending us an Oculus headset to be able to view this. Again, it's a sort of an in-person thing. I would guess that you would have to wear it to use. I'm not sure how the technology works as far as getting it out to those that have their own headsets. But I think the adaptation of that is actually really practical and something that we'll definitely look into. We have a new state museum that they're still hoping to build eventually, and they're hoping that maritime will be a huge part of it. We certainly bring in a lot of the science and technology that some of the other divisions aren't able to offer. So they've really had us in the forefront as far as providing ideas and opportunities to incorporate our maritime history into our new state history museum. Isn't that exciting?
Great for you. Well, way to be on the cutting edge as usual, Tammy, and we really appreciate you sharing the work that you were able to accomplish this year. So there's a lot of feathers in that cap, and congratulations on all the work you're doing.
Struggled through watching this too. So were there any questions?
You only dropped a few times.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any. Do you see any questions out there from Facebook land?
No, just everyone saying nice job. A lot of people really enjoyed it.
We also have another slate set that's available. So if anyone is interested in this, this is Shallow Water Shipwrecks of Door County. We made it primarily for paddlers, but if there are new divers out there that would like an interpretive slate set, please reach out to us. We'll make sure that you get one.
Very cool. And I guess I should say that's probably on the next docket of things we'll talk about in the business meeting for next season. But I know we weren't able to work together this season to do the field school on the Sydney ONEF up off Marinette. But hopefully that is still something we can carry forward as a partnership with WUA and the state program.
We sure hope so. So, I mean, we ended up in Whitefish Bay because we couldn't get to Sydney ONEF. That was we made our year 2 of our Sea Grant project, our year 1 of the Sea Grant project, which is just swapping around. So hopefully we get COVID under control and we're able to put 10 people in a house and run another field school, because certainly we lose out on the opportunity of training volunteers to be able to help us in this work.
For sure. Very good. Well, it sounds like you're also busy before we jump over to Ken Merriman, but good luck in your data analysis and helping and fighting the COVID front. So for those who don't know, Tammy is also now involved in data crunching for how patients are being tracked in terms of the fight against the coronavirus. So add that to the resume as well. Very good. Well, thanks again, Tammy. We'll be in touch soon again. And for those out there in Facebook land, I guess, Brendan, I'll turn it over to you and you can do the housekeeping bits before we bring up Ken.
All right. We are going to take a short break and this program will close, but stay on the Facebook page and you will see Ken Merriman within, probably within the next 3 to 5 minutes. So why don't we take a 3 to 5 minute break? Everyone can grab a coffee and then we'll come back for Ken. So thanks again, Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy.